Hi, I'm George Hepworth of Grover Park Consulting. Welcome back to the Northwind Developer for PowerApps series. If you've been following along, you know this project is all about helping Access developers acquire skills they need to build PowerApps applications, keeping as much of the familiar Access environment and workflow as possible. Today's topic is a classic example, the tab control. In Microsoft Access, tab controls are a standard feature, something you probably use all the time to keep related information together on one form. But in PowerApps, we have no native tab control. So the question is, how do we design something similar? That's exactly what I'll show you today, how the Northwind Developer demo app implements a tabbed control. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for future videos on Access, PowerApps, and related topics. Also, like this video while you're at it. I'd appreciate it. Let's start with Access. Here's an Access form with a tab control. It's for products. You can see multiple sections of related data, all living on a single screen. It's simple, compact, and easy for users. You don't have to click through separate forms or windows. Tabs act like sections of one cohesive form. This approach has been around for decades in Access. It's very comfortable for Access developers. Now, let's contrast that with PowerApps. Here's the same form, implemented as a screen in a PowerApps application. I picked a different product for this video. Unlike Access, PowerApps doesn't include a tab control out of the box. We need to assemble multiple components to simulate tabs. In other words, we have to build the behavior. Here's how I handled it in the Northwind Developer for PowerApps app. You'll notice the tabs across the top. Each tab is a control styled to look like part of a tab control. Behind the scenes, I track the selected tab using a variable. You could also use a named formula for that. When the user clicks a tab, the value of that variable changes, and different sections of the screen show or hide themselves based on which tab is active. That means I can create an Access-style experience, multiple panels of information organized in one screen, with tabs as the navigation. With a little design effort, this is something that's easy to set up in PowerApps. And the best part is that once you build it, you can reuse the same pattern or even turn it into a component for other screens. There are pros and cons. The biggest pro is familiarity for Access developers. This looks and feels natural. The biggest con is that it requires development effort and maintenance overhead. Each new tab requires logic for visibility, and you may have to duplicate some effort if your app has many tabbed screens. Let's turn our attention to the design and code that makes the simulated tab control work. I need to take the app out of runtime mode so we can see the design, features, and the code. To start, we need to know what a PowerApps container object is and some of what it does. A PowerApps container is a control used to organize and arrange other controls on a screen, helping to create structured layouts. One big advantage for us is that controls within a container respond to changes to their parent container. Of particular importance is the visible property. If the container is visible, all controls in it are visible, and vice versa. In other words, one line of code showing or hiding the container does the work of multiple lines of code that would be required to show or hide each control in it. In the replica tab control, I have 3 sets of controls for each of its basic components. The tabs are individual label controls across the top of the parent container. I could have put those into a subcontainer, but it would have had little practical impact, so I didn't bother. Below the tab controls, we have a set of product header containers. Each header row is in a subcontainer. Labels for the columns of data shown in the detail below are in that header row subcontainer. Below that, we have a set of detail rows. Galleries showing the detail rows for each tab are in these detail containers. Two of the tabs, product vendor and stock takes, also have components that support CRUD operations, adding and deleting vendors for products and adding and deleting stock takes for products. The controls for the add rows are in a subcontainer within the product CRUD container. Nested containers ensure that controls that work together are handled together in the interface. The layout. Labels used for the tabs are laid out just side by side across the top of the workspace, as you would expect. The other controls displaying header and detail rows are all the same size and position and are stacked one on top of the other. When a tab is selected, its associated header and detail subcontainers become visible, and the other three sets of containers are hidden. Because they are stacked one on top of the other, the visual impact is only to the content. There's no visible change in position or location. There's some more fancy stuff done with the tabs to simulate their look in the Access tab control, but that's pretty much all the coding effort required. As an aside, this is the design pattern I worked out. You may find other approaches used by other PowerApps developers. In the absence of a native tab control, you get a certain amount of creative freedom in return. The code that makes it work. I want to close up my screen a little bit so I don't get lost. Tab, product vendors. The onSelect event of each of the tab controls, which are labels, has one line of code. That line of code changes the value of a local variable, LV, product detail view, depending on which tab is selected. So tab 1 is product vendors. Tab 2 is customer orders. Tab 3 is purchase orders. And tab 4 is stock takes. So the value of LV product detail view controls the visibility of our other containers. Let's look at the visible property of the product headers for vendors container. It's visible only when the value of that variable, product detail view, is equal to 1. Product header orders is only visible when the variable's value is 2. Product headers PO is visible when LV product detail view equals 3. And the one for stock takes, product headers stock take, is visible when it's equal to 4. The same is true for the detail rows. The detail rows in these containers, where the gallery and subcontrols are contained, is controlled by the variable value that leaves the tab controls visual appearance. As you can see in runtime, when a tab control is selected, two things happen. The background color, or fill, changes from darker to lighter, and the bottom border disappears, merging the two controls together. Let's take the app out of runtime again and look at the code which handles the appearance of the tabs. The fill or background color for each of the tabs is the same. It's a conditional. If we're looking at Product Detail View 1, then the back color or fill is white. Otherwise, we give it the selected highlight back color, which is this gray color. That's how we handle the color. The visibility of the bottom border is a little more tricky. The formula says the height of our control depends on whether it has the focus or not. If the control is selected, the height of the control is 24 pixels. Otherwise, it is 22 pixels. Why does that work? It works because the control immediately below it, the header for the vendors, is set at 22 pixels. The tab is actually behind the header. So when the tab increases in size by 2 pixels, that pushes the bottom border down 2 pixels and it ends up behind the header. The same logic runs on each of our other tabs. The height of the tab changes, pushing its bottom border down, and because it's behind the header, it disappears. That's the fanciest it gets. Access gives us a ready-made tab control. PowerApps doesn't. But we can create a simulated tab control using buttons or labels and variables and visibility and appearance logic to manipulate the way the interface looks. It's not native, but it works and it feels familiar. I'll keep experimenting with design patterns as we continue building out the Northwest PowerApps demo app, but for now, that gives you a flavor of what's possible. Thanks for watching. I look forward to hearing what you think about tabbed interfaces. You can drop your comments about the simulated tab control in the comments. Let me know. Do you think it's worth the effort it takes to code up the individual components and make them work together? Or is it just as easy to go on ahead and create multiple separate screens? Thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.